Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's module. This week, we're going to be talking about administrative agencies. You're going to be hearing a lot about this over the next couple months as different posts get filled by the new administration. So what is an administrative agency? It's basically a specialized body created by Congress, right? They have to create it, and Congress has to create it. And they can only do so by passing a law. So it's a specialized body created by statute or law by Congress. And it gives these administrative agencies certain authority to regulate certain areas or activities. So Congress kind of delegates a certain area to a third party. All right, so they're often referred to as bureaucracies. You hear that term used a lot. Bureaucracy being defined as a large, complex organization composed of appointed government officials, right? Where no one is authorized to make any final decision. So you keep going around and around and around. All right. But it's not that bad. I mean, administrative agencies have a job to do. They get the work done. It just may take you a little while to get to where you need to be. All right. Some examples of administrative agencies that we have here in our federal government: the Department of Labor is a big one. The Department of Agriculture. Right, the Department of Defense, kind of like similar to what we did in a previous module with who were the heads of these organizations, of these agencies. Right, the Department of Defense, Department of Transportation, Homeland Security. Right, that's going to be a big one. NASA. The book says CIA. I don't agree with that. I think the CIA is not an administrative agency. It's more of a law enforcement agency. But the book says that it is. So I'm putting it in here just because I wanted to comment on it. All right, so I don't believe the FBI and the CIA are administrative agencies. I think they're law enforcement. But the book has a different view. I do believe the Office of Civil Rights, the Department of Transportation, and of course the Department of Education are administrative agencies. And this is an interesting one for me because working in higher ed and teaching you who are part of the educational process, I want to know what you think. What do you think the Department of Education's role is? I mean, what do you think they do? Do you feel the department is important? All right. And should it be eliminated or does it serve a vital purpose? All right. So I really want you to think about this because this may be a question on the quiz. All right. So this may be an essay question on a quiz. What the Department of Education, what is its role? Do you believe that it has an important role? And should it be eliminated? Because there's talk about eliminating the Department of Education. Or do you believe that it serves a vital interest? Being from your viewpoint as a student, it's important to get your perspective on it. All right, so think about that. That may be an essay question. All right, so to continue on, administrative agencies are sometimes also called government by proxy, which means the federal government pays others to do their job. Right? They pay local or state governments or even private groups sometimes to staff and administer federal programs. Right? It's like, we don't want to do it. We're just going to pay you to do it. Like me with my grass, right? I don't do it sometimes. I pay the kid from down the street to come over and do the grass, right? Lawn caring by proxy. But the federal government does different agencies by proxy. They use state, local, or even private groups to staff and make sure things get done. All right. The legislature makes laws, but they pay others to do the actual work. All right. That's what I mean by government by proxy. So let's shift gears a little bit now and discuss what administrative agency's power actually is, right? And there's two different veins of thought on this, right? One is discretionary authority, right? They have discretionary authority to the extent in which an appointed administrator can choose courses of action and make policies not spelled out in advance of law. Right, so they have pretty much, well, if it's not clear, I'm going to make the decisions on what direction we're going to go in. All right. But the other one is competitive authority. The government offices in which people are appointed on the basis of merit are ascertained by a written exam or by applying certain selection criteria. Right. So this isn't, it's a different way of thinking. Right. It's more competitive. Right. So it's kind of these two authorities. Maybe a question on the quiz about two different types of authority used within administrative agencies. But the biggest difference between a government agency and a private organization is the greater number of constraints on the agency, right? In a private business, you got to be streamlined, right? Because you want to get things done. Time is money, so to speak. And the more money you spend over here, the less money you're going to put in your pocket at the end of the quarter. All right, so some of the more general constraints on administrative agencies are they have to follow different laws, right? One of them is the Administrative Procedure Act, right, which basically says before you can adopt a new rule or policy, right, within your agency, that agency must give notice, solicit comments, and often hold hearings, right? So before you can make a decision about a rule or policy change within your organization, you have to give notice, solicit comments, and hold hearings. That takes time, right? And sometimes that takes a long time. Second one is the Freedom of Information Act. I think you've all heard of it. It's FOI. Freedom of Information. Citizens, us, have the right to inspect all government records. Right? We have the right to request all government records to a certain extent. Right? We can't get military records, intelligence records, or trade secrets. All right, or information about private details about personnel within the organizations. But for the most part, we can ask and receive information about all government records. Right, it's our right as citizens. All right, third more general constraint is National Environmental Policy Act. So what this means is that before a government agency can undertake any major action that affects the environment, they need to do an environmental impact study. All right, environmental impact studies take time and they're very expensive. And depending on what series of environmental impact study you're going to do, it could be 1, 2, 3. And the deeper, the more elaborate it is, the more time it takes and more expensive it actually is. And the fourth one is the Privacy Act, which means government files about individuals such as Social Security and tax records must be confidential. Right? Those are the only two. These are about personal things, right? Somebody can't solicit the Social Security office for your Social Security number. They can't solicit the tax office for your tax records. Right? This is one of the under the Freedom of Information they're not going to get. Okay, see, these are some of the more general constraints on the administrative agencies. All right, and the last one is open meeting law. All right, every part of every agency meeting must be open to the public. All right, unless it has military trade secrets or anything like that. All right, so must be open to the public. All right, so this causes delay because then the public feels that they want to chime in, they want to give their opinions, those kind of things. But all right, so these are some of the more general constraints on administrative agencies. One of the biggest constraints, though, all right, is Congress rarely gives any single job to a single agency. All right, so think about that. Right, so you have different government agencies doing the same thing. It calls for redundancy, right? Example, drug trafficking in the United States is part of customs, right? Customs has part of drug trafficking. The FBI, of course, the DEA, of course, Border Patrol, and the Defense Department, they all kind of do the same thing. So this causes a lot of delay and overlap and maybe some miscommunication between the two. So the effects of all these constraints is that the government at times acts very slowly, sometimes inconsistently, and it's easier to block action than it is to take action, right? If it's so hard, so difficult, you got so many roadblocks, you got so many hills to climb, well, just throw up a barrier. That's easier than getting it actually done. All right, so in addition, it seems like lower-ranking employees are reluctant to make decisions because they don't want to lose their job, they don't want to overstep, they don't understand what the policy implications are, and people complain that there's too much red tape. You've heard that comment before, right? There's so much red tape, I got to get things done. Too many forms to fill out. If you ever been to DMV, then you know what I'm talking about. Right? Too many forms to fill out. All right, it's a lot of work. You got to get things done, but because of the layers and layers and layers that you have to get through. All right. So deliverable for this model, quiz on Friday. All right. Quiz on Friday, opening up at 4 o'clock. All right. If anybody has any questions, comments, or criticisms before that, please let me know. Thank you.